Alrighty, everybody, welcome to the Family Business Podcast. I'm your host, Kobe, here today with my dad, Ryan, and my little brother, Gray. I'm here on the Family Business Podcast. We just like to talk business. We do it anyways, and so we decided to, hey, why not start a podcast and talk about it together? And it seems like kind of all of our family has the entrepreneur mindset, so we decided we're going to kind of one by one bring people on, bring my siblings on, and just kind of chat with them, see. It's kind of fun with Gray. We hear stories about him talking about business ideas with his friends at his friends' houses and stuff. Yeah. So he's always talking to me about ideas, and so we're excited. It's going to be kind of fun. But this is episode 4.
I think it's 5.
Is it 5?
Yeah. Last week we said 3, but I looked and it was our 4th.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess this is episode 5 then.
Episode 5, yeah. Well, and just as a matter of background here, Kobe is my oldest child, firstborn. And we have 3 daughters after Kobe, and then Gray is our 5th. So we have 5 kids, bookend boys, and we got our little buddy Gray. He's the youngest. It's kind of crazy to watch your kids become old and look in the mirror and become an old man. But Kobe's an adult. Gray's our youngest at 12, so kind of wild. But
yep,
that'll
he's
be
still short.
Still short.
Still short.
His favorite thing to do is talk about how much taller he is than everybody, but he's the shortest one in the family still.
Every time I walk in the house, he's like, Kobe, you're short. And I'm like, dude, I'm looking down at you. What are you talking about? Which we like to tease him.
Yeah.
He's kind of he gets bullied a little bit, huh?
A little bit.
A little bit.
So tell us, Gray, what it's like being in a family that is always talking business. You don't know any difference, do you?
I don't know.
What's your favorite thing to talk about?
Video games.
Yeah, I was gonna say he always talks Rocket League,
right?
Minecraft.
Yep.
Roblox.
Which I speak the Minecraft language. I'm a Minecraft nerd, but
yeah.
All the other ones, I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I have no idea, but he loves it, and he's super good at Rocket League.
Yeah. It's kind of shockingly good, actually.
Kind of shockingly good, yeah.
You watch him play, and you're like, what?
You're like, what the fetch? How is he doing that?
I know.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Rocket League, for anybody out there that doesn't know, it's like cars that fly around. It's a very popular game, so most people know what it is. But it's cars playing soccer, and you have to get the angles perfect, and it's tricky.
And it's in kind of an arena that has a roof and it has walls, so the ball bounces off.
Soccer.
It's car soccer, but they're like rocket cars,
but
so you can
indoor
fly
soccer.
through the air. And
750 hours, you should be pretty good at least.
Yeah,
that's all you've played is 750.
750.
This is a failure of a parent right here.
I probably have thousands of hours on Minecraft though over the years.
Yeah, me too, probably. Unfortunately,
pretty easily.
Yeah.
Well, now my parenting skills are on full display. We let our kids play video games way too much, but So Gray, obviously you like video games. What are some of your other favorite businesses or brands that you're aware of?
I don't know.
I know one thing that we've talked about a little bit is you've talked about getting into mowing lawns, which is kind of how my introduction to entrepreneurship and owning my own business was. I mowed lawns for almost 9 years, I think. It was pretty darn close. I think it was 8 or 9 years, and did it with some buddies, and we built it up to where we made enough money, way more money than our friends in the summer. It sucked in the moment, on a Saturday when you got to go mow a lawn and it's 100 degrees outside, but you go out and you make your money, and it's not very significant money to an adult, but as a kid, that was substantial, and I was able to buy things I wanted, buy candy, buy all that, just be an idiot as a kid, ride my bike to Smith's and go buy some sodas, and, but we've kind of chatted about that, and I know you're kind of formulating a business plan in your head.
With my buddy.
Yeah. So tell us more about that. What's kind of do you have any ideas or?
Well, I don't know, maybe just get 2 or 3 lawns.
2 or 3.
Just try and finish them pretty fast because we still want to do other stuff, of course. But
sure. You still got to have fun. You're a kid, right? How are you planning on getting those lawns? Are you going to go flyer? Or are you going to go knock on doors? You don't know yet?
We haven't fully talked about it.
Haven't figured it out.
So you got to think about having a good plan, but then you also got to market it, right? So you got to get out and tell people about it. So
people got to figure out who you are, and that was kind of the way that I did it. Is I just went and knocked doors. Me and my buddies, we'd. And
how old were you?
I think we were, the first time we did it, probably 14, maybe 15. I think we started doing it more heavily once we got a car. Like once we were able to drive
Yeah.
and had licenses, we could pull our trailer around and stuff like that. So
Well,
that
you
was when we
had our
started knocking a
lawn
little
from
more
probably a
heavily.
little earlier, and then a guy we know, Howard.
Yep. He came up to us in church actually, and he was like, "Hey, do you want a job?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, sure. What
Yeah.
is it?" And he's like, "I want you to mow my lawn." And so I'd ride
Perfect.
my bike up to his, and I think I was 11 when I started doing that. But I would ride my bike up every
Yeah.
week, and then he actually showed me. He was like, "Hey, you can turn this into a business." And I remember he took me in his van up on the hill. If you're not familiar with North Ogden, there's like a very fancy neighborhood up on the
Yeah.
hill, and he took me up to like one of the biggest houses up there, and he's like, "This guy started mowing lawns,
Yeah.
and now he runs a full-blown landscaping company."
Yep.
And it was kind of cool. It just opened my eyes.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be a good idea for you and a good way for you to make money and buy the things that you want, games and whatever, V-Bucks and all that stuff. It just gives you play money. It's kind of cool. So, but I think that's awesome that you and Everett are talking about that and wanting to do it.
I don't know. He's a little lazy, so I don't know if it's going to happen with him.
Maybe
but
not with him.
If not, then I'll just do it by
You
myself.
got to be
Right.
willing to get to work on your own. You're
That's
not
how I
always going to have somebody to do it with.
Well, and eventually you might find someone that you want to help, but I mean, you can do really well just on your own, Make more money that way so you don't have to mow quite as many lawns, but
We actually talked last week, I think it was last week, about failures. And Kobe talked about getting fired from one of his
Yeah.
landscaping jobs. And so one of the things we'll want to talk about is just quality, making
Yeah.
sure you're doing a good job. You're showing up when you say you're going to show up. You do the things you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it and in the best quality that you can provide. And if you have that, it doesn't mean you won't make mistakes, because even still just recently, like we had somebody that we were doing some advertising things for, and we just didn't deliver.
Yeah.
And I knew it. And so I gave him some money back, and I was like, hey, look, we're going to make this right. But then I can say, okay, what systems do I need to change? Like one of the things that you had to change was just showing up when you said, because
Right.
Kobe went to the lake instead of going to this guy's house. So,
and so he fired me.
and he fired him because he had to take time off work. He had to, adjust his schedule to make sure he was there.
So
And
I could get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I wasn't showing up.
Right. When you make things so difficult for the homeowner that they're just like, this is not worth it. This is not
Right.
worth my time. He fired Kobe. It was actually one of the great lessons for Kobe is it helped him realize that you can't treat people that way. It's not good customer service. So anyway, there's multiple pieces to any business. One, you have an idea. Two, you have to fulfill that idea, right? You have to actually have the ability. Like in your case, you can borrow my lawnmower, right? And my trimmer. But you have to be able to fulfill on that. And Kobe used our lawnmower and trimmer for many years.
Yep.
Actually, interestingly, wore it out. Like literally
Yeah.
I'd never seen that on a lawnmower. I'm like, man, that thing's not that old. But
It was
it
a
had like
Honda
ball
mower, too. It was like-
tires and yeah.
It was like a heavy duty mower. It was no joke.
No.
Like it wasn't just some cheap,
Yeah. And he full on wore. What was the most lawns you did do you
in
remember?
the summer.
Yeah.
I think our highest number that we got to was like 34 or 35 lawns a week.
That's a lot.
And that was with 2 people.
Yeah.
But we were also going to, we had school and sometimes in the spring. I mean, it
Yeah.
just depends on the weather here.
Yeah.
But then in the fall, for sure, we have school. And so
Sure.
we'd get done with school and we'd have 4 or 5 lawns to mow right after
Every
school.
day.
Every single day. So we'd be mowing until dark and then you
Yeah.
come home and repeat, go to school the next day.
But truthfully,
mow
you
lawns.
had more money than most of your friends.
For
and
sure.
you had, the ability to pay for gas and pay for treats and
Yep.
go to the movies and things like that. It's definitely, and I mowed lawns when I was young too. In fact, I was mowing my parents' lawn, and the next door neighbor was like, "Hey, can you mow my lawn?" I was like, "Okay, sure." So I started
Right.
mowing their lawn just right next door. I just did them all together, and then, and this was in Las Vegas. You think you had it hot? I'll tell
Right.
you. As a kid, I never noticed. I just was hot,
Right.
But
You're sweating.
and then one day, this guy drove by, and he was a single guy. He was in really good shape, but he's probably my age now. And I just remember him, hey, do you mow other people's lawns? And I'm like, yeah, this is my neighbor. I live over there. And he's like, here's my address. This was back, in the 80s and little different time than today. But he was like, here's my address. Come over to my house. And so I told my mom, and she's like, okay, I'll go with you. And so she went with me over to his house. And he had a massive, massive yard. And he's like, I just need someone to come mow this every week, and I'll pay you $25, which back in the 80s, I got to be honest, that was a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
It was like whoa, today that lawn probably would be $75 to
Right.
mow, but it was, not the same time. So my mom felt good about it. I felt good about it. This guy was so cool. Like, he was single. So he had kind of a bachelor's lifestyle. He had these sand rails. He had 2 of them, and they're these like dune buggies, if you will, that have these massive tires on them with the big paddles, and they can ride in the sand dunes and go really fast. He ran them on pure alcohol or something like that, like
Pure ethanol.
ethanol. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
something
know
like
what it
that.
was. It was like
Yeah.
very expensive gas. One time, he wasn't around, and this was pre-cell phone era, and I was trying to figure it out. And so he had gas tanks on the front of the trailer of his sand rails, and so I put it in the mower, and man, that mower ran so hot. And I was like, I told him about it, and he's like, yeah, don't use that for the mower.
That's hilarious.
That's for the sand rails. And but I learned a couple of really key things from him. One was that once I gained his trust, he just like, that was a really, like, what a cool dude. He helped me a ton. He paid me what I felt was really good money at the time. I was probably your age when I started, maybe a little older, 13 or 14. And then he just, he had cool things. He was, successful, and I like that. He had a nice home, big old yard. He had this super cool Irish setter dog that he had trained to catch a Frisbee. And literally my entire life, I wanted a dog that could run and catch a Frisbee. And then during the pandemic, we got Blue, our black lab. And it's funny because as a lab, most labs love balls, and Blue could care less about balls. But you chuck a disc and he
Frisbee.
will run after that thing. He loves it. And he
Chase
can
it
catch
down.
it, big flying leap when he's in good shape.
It's awesome.
During the winter, he gets a little lazy, but
Yeah.
man, it's so fun. It's like a fulfillment. I always I want a dog like that, because I would
Right.
stand in that backyard for like
chuck
20
Frisbees.
minutes, and it was so long that I could just really haul off on him and make him go far, and that dog would go chase him, and man, it was super cool.
That's fun. That's
So-
cool. Well, one thing that I wanted to kind of talk about, Gray's been doing a push-up. Well, I guess both of you have been doing a push-up
Yeah.
challenge. Gray's been getting strong. Like every
Yeah.
time I grab his shoulder, I'm like, holy crap, dude, he's
built
getting
like a rock.
he's like a freaking brick house, like just freaking solid. And he's been doing like, he told me the other day he did like 200 in a day. He just did some
Yeah.
extra just for fun,
Yep.
and he's getting strong. Like you can see it in his shoulders and his chest. He's
Yeah.
thickening out, getting strong.
So I came across this challenge. It was for St. Jude's, raising some money for St. Jude's, and it's a 100 push-up a day challenge where every day you commit to doing at least 100 push-ups throughout the day. Not necessarily in a row, because I couldn't do 100 push-ups
hard
in a
to
row
do.
even
Yeah.
now, even after doing it for a month. My max right now is 75 that I can do in a row, and by the time I get to 75, my arms are shaking and I'm pretty,
Yeah.
pretty shaky. But how many have you done in a row now?
I think 50.
50 is your
50.
max.
That's pretty killer.
Now, I was working out before we started, so I was in at least push-up shape. I could do
Already in
push-ups,
shape a little.
I
Sure.
mean, me too. But I
Were
was
you
only
working
doing
out before?
25.
Okay. You were doing 25 a day when you worked out, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's been a good challenge, and it's interesting. Your body does change just doing
Yeah.
push-ups.
Quickly too. You'd
Yeah.
be surprised how it only takes like a week or two for
Yeah.
your body to you start seeing it.
At your age, it takes
Well,
longer for
yeah.
me. But
you're old. You're old. That's different. That's different.
But Gray is literally like become just so hard and
Strong.
solid
Yeah.
from doing this, and we're both going to continue doing it after January's over. So
Yeah.
we're going to keep doing our push-ups.
But how has it been? What have you thought about it? Like going through it? I mean, it's kind of cool that you've taken the, like decided, oh, I'm going to do 100 more today. Like, I think that's cool. But like, what has been like the mindset throughout the month that you've been doing this challenge? Like, has anything changed or?
Well, I feel like at the start, I could barely do 25 in a row. And then it just started, I just kept pushing and pushing. Like every day, you just got to push your limit, push to your max. And then that's when you're going to see the most change.
And we were talking the other day, like you notice like when you're pushing your body weight up, it feels lighter once you start getting stronger. It's kind of cool how you've noticed that too. But yeah, it's just like pushing yourself to that limit every day. I think that's a valuable,
Yeah.
thing even in business, is just pushing yourself every single day to the limit. What you think the limit is, because your limit is a lot more than you think. Like they
Like
talk
in
about
sales, you have to push every day and get your max sales or
Exactly.
more.
Exactly. Well, and I think a lot of times people will limit themselves to what they think their max is because they get comfortable and they don't push to that uncomfortable zone, which is like, you get to your 40th push-up and you're like, oh, I'm shaking, I'm so tired, but you squeeze out 5 more, or you do an extra set after, or you do more. No matter what, every single day you're trying to do more and more and more. And as you get stronger, it might not be 100 push-ups a day. It might be 200. That might become your new normal, but that's kind of cool.
There's
I
a
like
lesson in having that goal, though, right? You said, okay, I'm going to do 100. In my very first sales job, I had to do phone time, where you'd sit down at the phone and you dial your leads, right? And if you didn't dial your leads, you didn't have appointments. If you don't have appointments, you don't make sales. So I would sometimes get frustrated or nervous or whatever. We've talked about fears before. That was one, as I would just freak out and I'd have to have this mantra I could tell myself to get myself to do the phone calls. But one of the things in sales that you can control, you can't always control your closing percentage. You can get better at it and improve it, but you can't always control that. You can control the activity you make, right? So you can say, all right, I'm going to make 100 phone calls today, or I'm going to make 200 phone calls today, or I'm going to make 100 door knocks. Kobe and I have both done door-to-door sales. So you can say, I'm going to do this. This is my goal. I'm going to go after that goal. And that's something you can control. And I've used that throughout my sales career, and I use it in working out, and it does. So just having that goal has made you and I push ourselves. I wasn't doing 100 push-ups a day. I was probably, at least at the gym, I'd probably do 12 in my warm-up, 12 to 25. And then sometimes up to, like, just yesterday, I did 90 during the course of the workout. But, like, that is a workout with a trainer, and so Will sometimes has push-ups as part of our workout, right? So,
Sure.
But it wasn't consistent, and so I think having that goal to make sure. And sometimes it's cold here right now, and so I get ready for bed. I jump into bed, put all my covers on, and then I'm like, I haven't done my push-ups.
I'm all warm. I got to
The
get up.
good news is, though, when you do push-ups, you get warm really fast.
You get warm quick.
One of the things that I talked to your mom about this is kind of interesting, and you'll have to see, is I'll set a goal when I get down to do my first set. I'm like, all right, I got to do 50. Now it's 50. When I first started, it was like 30, but I have this funny thing I do, and everybody has these internal voices, right? And these internal monologues that we have with ourselves. But this one, you guys will have to see if this helps you. But one of the things that I'll do is I'll say, okay, I'll set my goal. Let's say I'm going to try and get to 30. And so I'll start going and I count. I constantly count everything I'm doing. I'm always counting repetitions of whatever. So I'll get to 10 and I'll say, in my mind, I'm a third of the way there. And then I get to 15 and I'm like, I'm already halfway done. And then I get to 20 and I'm like, I only have 10 left. Instead of I'm at 20, I go 19, I only have 10 left in my head. And then I'll say, okay, I only have 5 left. I can do more than that when I get to 25. And then I'll get to 25 and I'll be like, I bet I can do 10 more. So I don't ever overcommit at the very beginning, but then I start pushing myself during to get up to that. So when I did 75 the other day, I set a goal for 50. But I got to 40 and I'll start talking to myself and I'm like, you're doing good at 40. Like 50 is easy. Like I'm at 40 and I'm feeling good, right? And I keep counting. And so then I'm like, all right, I'm going beyond 50. So then I got to 50 and I'm like, let's do 10 more. And then I did 60 and I was like, let's do 10 more. And then I got to 70 and I was really shaking and I was like, okay, let's do 5 more. And I just kept going. And honestly, there's more in us than we probably realize. So I probably could have even pushed further. And my goal is by the 31st to try and do 100 push-ups in a row if I can.
That's sweet.
I'm going to go till failure. I'm going to go till my arms give out. I actually
just drop.
Yeah. When I served as a missionary in the Philippines for our church, and I set a goal on my hump day. It was a 2-year mission. You commit to going for 2 years. So my hump day, 1 year, I was like, I'm going to do 100 push-ups in a row. I was, a 20-year-old kid, and I attempted it. And so I would do push-ups every day. I should have been doing 100 push-ups a day, but just in but I would just do as many as I could and then try to push through it. And so my 100th day came and I got to 97. So I'm doing push-ups and I would do them on I had this wood frame bed with a little foam mattress. So I'd pull the mattress off and I'd just do them on the wood because I didn't like the ground. It was kind of dirty. Yeah. And so I would just do them on this bed. And I just remember getting to 97 and full failure. And I was like pushing up on 97, shaking so bad. And then wham, and I fell down onto the bed frame and just like smacked into it. And I laid there and I was so mad because I was like, I only had 3 left. And then I just did the 3 more when I could. And anyway, funny. But that was my first experience with 100 push-ups. But so hopefully we can do it.
That's funny.
We only got
you guys got it.
5 days left.
It's kind of funny. It reminds me of a story. I was at the lake with my friends one time, and one of my buddies, he was just kind of being a jerk, like just kind of, jabbing at me a little bit. He's like, everybody here has abs except for Kobe. And I was like, screw you, dude. I'm way stronger than you. And I've done push-ups since right about your age. Like I started doing push-ups every single day. So I've done push-ups and sit-ups my whole life. Yeah. And so I was like, whatever, dude, I'm stronger than you. I was like, let's do a push-up challenge right now. And it's the challenge where it's 2 people and you can't touch the ground at all in the challenge. You have to stay in push-up form.
Stay in plank, basically.
Yeah, but I do 1 push-up, you do 1 push-up, I do 2, you do 2, all the way up to 10, and then back down, and it's 100 push-ups exactly. Yeah. And I was like, I don't care if you have abs. I was like, I'll beat you in this right now. I bet you can't do 100 push-ups with me. And he gave up at like 60, and I just kept pushing. And I think it was like, it motivated me because I was like, screw you, dude. So I did it. I finished, and I collapsed on the ground. I did the same thing, collapsed on the ground, like couldn't even, just shaking so hard. But I did 100, and I felt good about myself after. I was like, I don't care about your stupid abs, man. I freaking do 100 push-ups right here.
We all have abs. Some of us just cover it in a protective sheathing of, mine are protected, very well protected. So Gray, what's a lesson, like a business lesson or business idea that you have heard around the house that you really like or that you're interested in?
I don't know.
I mean, you just went to one of my classes. I teach some classes here locally. You went to one yesterday. What's something you picked up out of that? Do you remember it? It was only a day ago. Less than a day because it was yesterday afternoon.
It was like 12 hours ago.
Well, I mean, you were talking about like putting yourself out there, having everyone know your story, and having everyone choose you instead of your competitors.
Yeah. How do you do that? We talked about it yesterday. It's okay if you don't remember.
Well, like having your story out there and having them know you instead of them, like having them be like, oh, well, I can trust you more than I can trust this competitor.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like tying your story into your business, right? So that people know you, and that's why they choose you, right?
Yeah. And the story, it gives that identity to the business, right? That unique identity. Because if you're a plumber, for example, and you're like, yeah, I clean drains. Well, so does every other plumber.
So does everybody else.
And I show up on time. Well, that's like a minimum standard, right? Like that shouldn't be. Unfortunately, it probably is an identifier today if you really do, but it shouldn't be, right? It's like a minimum standard. So telling, do you remember the story that I told about the bakery?
The bakery, yeah. She had really good, like she was a really good cook, but no one else knew her because she just had her customers that came over because they knew they had stopped by her once and they loved it. But all of her competitors are bigger and more out there, and so she started to post on Instagram and stuff, and she told her story about her and her grandma and how that, and it just helped because she put her story out everywhere on her
became more personal and
so everyone knew her for that.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing that I kind of took from that story too was that she wasn't afraid to repeat herself. Yeah. She told her story every single time somebody came into her shop, and then people fell in love with that story. They'd hear it every single time, and they'd come in and they'd tell it to their friends, and then their friends are like, "Oh, we should go to this bakery. Like, it's really cool." She tells you a little story as she's serving up your cinnamon roll or whatever
Yeah.
it is, And the cinnamon roll is better when there's a story behind
Right.
it. When it's like, oh, this is her grandma's recipe. Her grandma was awesome. These cinnamon rolls are amazing, whatever, but she wasn't afraid to tell every single time.
Well, when
So-
you think about bakery, right, and you get it, someone refers you, and they're like, you got to go check out these cinnamon rolls. They're great.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, cool. In one ear, out the other, right? When someone says, there's the cutest little bakery, it's right over here in North Ogden, and the gal who owns it, she's so sweet, and she tells the story of how her and her grandma developed this recipe for cinnamon rolls, and the way they do it is so cool, and they are so good. Which one are you more likely to go check out? The really good cinnamon roll or the one
Or the
whose
cute
grandma
old
and her
lady
figured it
and-
out?
yeah.
Like, it just has that differentiation. So anything you're marketing, you want to come up with what your unique identifiers are. What are the things that people
Who's
are,
your who?
say more about that?
Well, like you just have to find the person that you're trying to market to, and like
Right.
trying to, because you're gonna get more sales out of that person than you are out of a random person walking across. The
Yeah. So a lot of times in my business, in the marketing business, we'll talk to someone and I'll say, "Who's your ideal audience?" They're like, "Oh, well, a plumber will say anybody with a toilet." And I'm like,
Right.
it's not anybody with a toilet. There's a specific group that's going to identify with you and your politics and your personal desires and your,
hobbies and interests and all that stuff.
yeah. And so you're way better off finding what in marketing they call it a minimum viable audience. It's the smallest, but big enough to still have a business, but the smallest group that you can identify with on a special level. So one of the things that we did with RoofMax is we bought a classic car.
Yep.
Because we knew, because it was a franchise, we knew talking to the franchise that there was an ideal audience, which was men age 55 plus that are maintenance minded. They like classic cars. There were several other things, but we're like, ooh, classic cars. So we bought this 72 Chevy. We'll use it in our advertisements, drive it around, and people recognize it
Yep.
because it's unique. But that group of people are really one of our ideal. They're not the only one, but they're one of them. And so part of our story is we like classic cars too. And so we identify with them. We go to car shows from time to time and we meet people, and you just develop these relationships over time. So knowing your who, and then the next step is what?
Knowing your who's why.
Exactly. Which is what? Do you remember?
Like why they're buying your product.
Versus someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You told a story about like Nike and
Hyatt.
and Hyatt. Like
Yeah.
you would know if Nike made a hotel, you would know exactly what it would be, like sportsy
Yeah.
but Hyatt, if they made a shoe, you would have no clue what it would be like.
Yeah.
Maybe boring.
Yeah.
Like
Well, can
Boring
you even think what the
colors and-
Hyatt logo is? Nobody knows, right? I'm sure we could look it up and you could see what it looks like, but we know what the Nike logo is.
Right.
Yeah. Those are
Kinda
good
cool.
lessons.
Yeah, it's a powerful story.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That came from Seth Godin. He wrote the book, This is Marketing. And so you have two, probably the primary authors and speakers in the marketing world right now are Seth Godin and Simon Sinek. And Simon his book is Start With Why. And I love that book, by the way. If you haven't read it, it's highly recommended. But he says, start with why. And I was like, yeah, start with why as long as you know who your who is.
Right.
But Seth Godin really focuses on the minimum viable audience, right? That's his terminology, is like focusing on getting your who identified. I did a lot of Dan Kennedy studying growing up in my marketing career, and I loved Dan Kennedy's newsletter. I got his Inner Circle newsletter. I did all these things and learned a ton from him. But he talked about target audiences as well, and niching, how important niching is, and knowing who you're talking to first. And so it's super important. And most businesses don't realize that if you're a graphic designer, I mean, graphic design could include so many things, right? I have 4 or 5 that work for me. They create ads. They design our magazines. Well, you also have graphic designers that only do logos. You have graphic designers who do packaging. You have graphic designers who do billboards. You have graphic designers who do web development, the look and feel of a website. All of those are niches. And if you're doing websites, that's great. But what if you were very specifically extremely good at doing lawyer websites and lawyer logos? Like you knew all of the ins and outs of the psychological ramifications of a logo for an attorney to help them get better response, right? Now you know exactly who you're talking to, and you can speak their language. I was talking to a friend last night who sold curriculum to schools, and we were talking about the lingo of the education world. And I have another friend, Micah, who I'm working with right now, and he's in that world, and he's talking that same language. I'm like, you guys sound like each other, you know,
That's
and
funny.
I have no idea what you're talking about half the time. But knowing your niche, knowing exactly who you're talking to, and why they would choose you over your competition. And that should be because of your special skill set.
Right.
So
One thing that me and Gray have kind of talked about before, it's been a while since we talked about it, but I know obviously you are in the world of gaming. You like watching gaming videos and, anything, just all things like that. And you've talked about starting your own YouTube channel. So these are all things and like a framework for how you would want to build that out, right? You want to find something unique that is, tailored to you, that's like part of your story also, but you want to find your unique value, right? That is going to bring your audience in. Can you think of any things along those lines? Like if you were to do a YouTube channel for Rocket League, like you could do something silly, do something funny. Does anything come to mind?
Not
No,
really.
not really.
But
Do you still feel like you would want to do something like that, like a YouTube channel or, yeah?
Yeah.
What would you do? Like what would kind of
So
be your
yesterday,
content?
here's something to think about. Yesterday, we were with a group in the class that I taught. One of them was a loan officer. There's tons of mortgage people in the world, right? It's a high competition market. Well, she identifies uniquely with people by her website is loanscanbefun.com or something like that. She has pink hair, and she drives a bright pink SUV thing around. Like she very much stands out. So sometimes it's something simple like that where you could just dye your hair pink.
Yeah, I think you should do that. I think you should dye it pink. No, but I think like, you take something that you love, something that is like really cool, that like a skill of yours, like you can solve a Rubik's Cube in like 30 seconds. Like that's freaking insane. Maybe you tie in Rubik's Cube or something, in between shots, you have to solve a Rubik's Cube as fast as you can. Whoever solves it first, then you get to try and score in Rocket League, just like kind of little ideas like that where it's something unique to you. Like do any of those things come to mind? Like what are some of your unique talents, some of your unique things that you like?
There's a TikTok video right now of a guy kind of dancing and he solves a Rubik's Cube and he is like a heartthrob across the TikTok world. Like all the girls are they're like, this is the ideal man. And it's funny because he's just kind of an average dude, and I mean, he's good. I'm sure he's good looking. I don't know, but
Yeah.
he stands there and he dances and he's doing moves and then he goes, and he solves his Rubik's Cube and he holds it up. And then for some reason that like people were like, whoa,
blows up.
that guy.
Like, whoa.
So maybe
That's
you should
awesome.
throw that in there.
Throw
Rubik's
that in
Cube's
there
kind of
somehow.
hot right now.
Right. So start your own challenge or something.
Gray's actually been learning how to teach because everybody, when he was in elementary, why don't you tell a story about everybody wanting you to help him?
well, like all of the girls and some of the boys all got into Rubik's Cubes. I kind of started something in my school, and everyone would like accidentally mix up their cubes trying to do some patterns, and then they'd come ask me to fix it every single day. All of them had crappy cubes, so it sucked to solve it, but so it's always kind of annoying, but
He likes the cubes that move really easily.
He likes the premium stuff. He's a Speltz. It just runs in the
I
family.
don't
He's
know,
a
they all had like
cube snob.
Rubik Company though. Like at least have a mid-grade one.
Right.
Mine was like $14 then, and it was still better than theirs.
Right.
I mean, now I have a $30-$40 cube, but
Right. I thought it was cool, especially when he was first, kind of figuring it out. I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube when I was probably right around the same age.
Yeah.
I just got obsessed with it, and I was like, I want to learn how to do this. So I was watching YouTube videos. It took forever, but he has that same thing that I have. I think it's also just a Spelt thing, but we're hyper obsessive about things.
A mania.
like a literal mania. Like I'd just go manic
It's
for a
true.
little while, and he wanted to learn
Obsessive
it so bad.
compulsive almost.
Right. But at the time, I was living in Florida still when I was
Yeah.
doing door to door. And so Mom kept texting me, and she's like, Gray wants to learn this so bad. You have to help him. Like, he's trying to figure it out, and he just kind of keeps getting stuck. And so we were on FaceTime calls. I was drawing out diagrams and sending it to him. But once he figured it out, it just clicked. And then now he's done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. But what's your fastest time?
34 seconds.
34 seconds. That's pretty freaking insane.
Yeah.
Like a Rubik's Cube.
Awesome.
It's
crazy.
It's a lot of steps, like a lot of moves. And
I've never
sometimes
done
it's
it.
quicker, but
It's wild.
it's tricky.
But then he started getting frustrated because he would be like, why don't they want to learn it? Why don't they? And you'll
just
find
want
this
him to do
actually
that.
in your professional career too. You're like, oh, aren't we all trying to do, like, why won't people learn marketing? Why won't people learn sales? Those kinds of things. But truthfully, it can be one of those things that sets you apart from the crowd is learning unique skills that people don't have. But the thing that I got from you, which I think is really powerful, is he started wanting, people would say, well, they want to learn, but he'd try to explain it, but it was so confusing to them, they would give up. And it frustrated him because he's like, I want my best friend, Everett, to learn how to do this. I want, my teammates on the volleyball team, I want them to learn how to do that. And so he started working on the skill of then teaching it. He had the skill of doing it. And it's interesting because in my industry, I am in marketing now, but most of my career was in sales. And in the sales industry, often the best salespeople were the worst managers because they didn't know how to teach what they did. Sometimes they had a natural proclivity or skill towards it, but they were terrible teachers, impatient because people couldn't do it the way they did it.
Right.
And so I think that's pretty powerful. So talk about what you've learned in learning to teach it and make it so people could stay with you, because it is challenging. And you have taught some people how to do it, which is pretty neat.
Well, like, I see it differently. I see it as, well, I have to set this up, and I can see what a certain move is going to place certain stuff in, but as a starter, you're not going to see that. So I have to start with just saying colors and, really hyper doing stuff. So I'll have them start with the first, you start with a little cross shape, and I'll have them solve that, hundreds of times, and then you can start solving the first square, and then have them do that a bunch of times, and then you solve the first row. You just have to take it really slow compared to
Step by step.
being really fast, because my mind's going to work to it faster than theirs, and they're not going to see it as, oh, well, this piece goes here. They're not going to see it like that at all.
Right. Yeah. And at first it's a lot of information when you're teaching somebody because it's algorithms. People, and my brain's like this, and I'm assuming yours is just like it because you took to it really quickly and you're better than I am at it, way better. But it's all these patterns and movements, and there's an algorithm, and it's 8 to 15 moves to get all your pieces in the right place. And so to somebody that doesn't know, they just see all these numbers and movements and colors. So it's cool that you break it down to the colors, and you're this is the first step.
Yeah.
You need to master this first, or else you're going to get so confused on the other
Well, what
ones.
I have them do is I have them pick a color that they first want to solve. So I'm pick your favorite color. I started with green.
Yeah.
Just because you solve it with that. But I'm start with your favorite color, which is most of the time blue or something like that.
Whatever
and so
it is.
I'm just pick your favorite color, because that's probably what you're going to remember the most. And then drill that into your mind, that's the first thing you start with. And pick that side, go to that side, and then start figuring out certain stuff.
Right.
How I say it, I'm okay, so you see how this is a red and blue piece? Well, you've got to match that. You've got to match it to the blue and match it to the red.
Right.
But
if you've ever used the cube, the very center piece is fixed, right? So the center piece is the blue. That's the blue side.
Always the blue side.
And the green is green, and the white is white.
Right.
That's a fixed piece. Everything else moves around those.
Yep. It's all the edge pieces that spin around and move. But
well, we were driving with Gray and a teammate of his from his volleyball team, and his teammate was like, man, I wish you could show me how to do that. And so on the drive, Gray would create situations on the cube, and he's done it thousands of times to the point where he is really pretty amazing at it. We should have brought it in here so you could show it on video, because it's incredible to watch.
Should I run and grab it real fast?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll go
It's in
grab
my
one.
room.
It's
It's
in your
just-
room. It's just right there. Okay, I'll go grab it. I'll be back.
So he sat there teaching this young man, how to do it. And it was cool because he would create these little things and he'd be like, okay, you're going to do this move, and this move to get this green piece into position.
Or like I would make certain things that say like bring the elevator down or something.
Right. Little sayings.
Yeah.
And it was about an hour drive, I would say. And at the end of that hour, it actually, he solved his first cube, which was really cool. And it wasn't a full solve, but he had done all the steps.
And he couldn't do it after, but then the next ride, we started drilling it into his mind, and he started being able to solve like the first row and the second row.
Yeah, he has those basics, and if he's like us, where he gets a little crazy and starts, obsessing over it and just doing it hundreds of times, he'll figure it out. And the thing that was interesting about Gray is a lot of times when things get too hard, a lot of us will give up, right? Like I definitely know when things get hard, sometimes you're like, this isn't worth it. I'm not going to do it anymore. But Gray stuck with it despite it taking months for you to figure this thing out. And you watch YouTube videos and you're like, yeah, but that doesn't apply to the thing I'm seeing on mine, either. So it's showing up in this one there. So that'll work. Yep. And I've got like 5 minutes left, so
we gotta go quick. Okay, it's barely in that one, but I'm kind of mixing it up a little bit. I'm gonna get this, so hopefully this is a good one where you get it really fast. It'd be cool if you made a PR or something.
Your
so
record.
I'm just mixing it up. Just
he's
randomly.
stretching. He's
PR
cracking
is
his knuckles.
He's cracking his fingers, just getting them warmed up.
Personal record is PR.
You gotta have little finger
Really?
warmers.
I had no idea. Just kidding.
Okay, I think that's probably pretty good. So I'm going to put this here. You have a second to look at it if you want. You can kind of look at it, and then I will give you a countdown, 3, 2, 1. And then when you're done, if you just want to like pat the table
right
or something.
here so it can be on
so we can kind of
video.
You can't really
it's on
see it
that
on this one, but it's fine. Are you ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. So close.
Done. 43.
43 seconds.
It's pretty
Holy
amazing.
Cow. That was pretty insane.
He pretty consistently lands in the 40s. Every once in a while he'll get in the 30s. When he practices a lot, he gets in the 30s more. But it's pretty amazing.
Did you show the cube? It's okay. It's all solved. Just so
he'll
people know it's real.
And play with it for on a drive or something, and he mixes it up and then fixes it. Mix it up and fixes it. It's pretty cool. But if you apply that to any pursuit you want in your life, that desire and then repetition, you'll find success in life. It's pretty cool.
But then on top of that, desire and repetition is good, but then it's the action and it's the planning and it's the finding out all those things that we've been talking about.
Studying
you
it
have
out,
a plan,
figuring it out.
People that you're targeting. So,
Tired?
But the repetition and the action is important too. Just doing it over and over again.
Well, you got any last thoughts for the listeners?
Not really.
Any words of wisdom from a
12-year-old?
12-year-old, super sharp 12-year-old?
Not really.
Nothing. What do you think about being on the podcast?
It's kind of weird. I don't know.
It's kind of weird talking into a mic and hearing your own voice and stuff, but you did pretty good. It's a little nervous at first, like nerve-wracking, but then once you get talking, it's just a conversation,
Here's what I think we should do. We should bring you back in a few weeks down the road, but have you make a business plan and bring it to Kobe and I to review and talk about and think about the marketing and the who and the why and all of that stuff. That sound good? So I want you to think of what one of the businesses you're ready to pursue. It doesn't matter which one it is. You have lots of ideas. So think of one that you're like, you know what? Let's start going after it. Could be lawns, could be your YouTube channel, could be anything. And let's bring it back. We'll work on the business plan and we'll talk about it.
And we'll just keep coming back and updating as we go.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Whatever platform you're listening on, if you could just drop a like for us or subscribe, it really just helps push it out to people who like the same kind of content and haven't heard the podcast anymore. So if you just take 2 seconds, just click that little button. It takes 2 seconds. Just do it. Just hit it. Hit it for us. So this is the Family Business Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week.
Awesome.